and welcome to Allergies in the Kitchen, where we are learning to cook and shop allergy-friendly together. Today's recipe is a really good one. I have a recipe for pumpkin donuts with a cinnamon maple glaze. Yes, it is so good. My kids loved it and they enjoyed helping me make these. They were really good. You're going to eat them all up. I think this recipe would be really good for Thanksgiving morning, and it may be what we end up doing. Everybody loves the pumpkin donut in the fall. Let's get to it.
My little helper Asher is going to help me make these delicious donuts. We're going to get started with 1.5 cups of all-purpose or gluten-free 1-to-1 flour. I'm using King Arthur's 1-to-1 baking flour mix this day. Now we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Then he's going to help me measure out 1 teaspoon of baking soda. He's getting pretty good at measuring things out himself. But he's still a kid and likes to play and dig the spoon into the bowl. Now we add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Here he's wanting to try to smell the salt. It's nice for them to take interest in the ingredients and learn what different things taste like. Like he's about to taste this salt, and I cut it out, but he finds out salt by itself does not taste very good and had him coughing some. But encourage them to play a little bit. The more they learn about the ingredients, the more into it they're going to be able to cook and cook safely for themselves. So we also added a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and now a teaspoon of cinnamon. You can omit these and combine them into just add 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice if you have that on hand. I didn't have any on hand, so all I had was the cinnamon and the nutmeg. It still turned out really delicious and had that pumpkin pie spiciness to it, but the original recipe does call for pumpkin pie spice. Now I'm letting Asher whisk those dry ingredients together just to make sure it's all really well incorporated. I'm going to set aside my dry ingredients and begin to work on my wet ingredients for our pumpkin donuts. I'm getting a little coffee cup, or you can use a little bowl ready. I'm preparing to melt some butter. We use the Melt brand butter. There's also Earth Balance. They make a soy-free version. That's what we used to use till we had to remove pea protein. But I'm going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter. Asher loves butter, so you can see him trying to lick all that butter off of the knife. And now he's trying to lick the bowl. I know my mom has told stories of me eating butter right out of the tub when I was a little kid, and he definitely follows in his mama's footsteps on that. Now Asher is pouring our 3 tablespoons of melted butter into the bowl. Next, we're going to add our pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling, but pumpkin puree. We use half a cup of that. He was not real excited when he saw what this looked like and smelled like when we first opened the can, but he did really enjoy these donuts. Now we're going to sweeten it up a bit. We add a 1/3 cup of brown sugar. This is another ingredient that Asher loves to taste test. Who doesn't love sugar? Next, I add a 1/3 cup of safe milk. Here I'm using coconut milk, but you could also use oat milk, rice milk, hemp milk, or regular whole milk if you don't have a dairy allergy. Now I add a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. It's going to react with the baking powder and baking soda and help our donuts to rise and give them the proper texture. Then, of course, almost all baked goods need a little vanilla. So here's a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And he smelled that and he said, "Oh, that smells good." I'm just going to mix that up with the mixer and let it all get incorporated together. Now we add about a cup of the mix to it, and then I'm going to let that mix up a little bit just so we don't make a mess and have flour flying everywhere. Then I add in the rest of the flour mixture and let that mix up till it just comes together. I let him have a little taste of the batter to see what he thought, and he seemed to really like it. So now I'm just spooning this into a piping bag, and I have it kind of set in a cup so that it stays upright. I just spoon it into the piping bag and then cut a bit off of the tip of it. That's so I can pipe it into the donut pan. I decided I didn't cut off quite enough of my tip when I first started piping the donuts, so I went back and cut off some more. I kept having to go around twice, and it just seemed like my donuts were not going to turn out that pretty doing it that way. So make sure you cut off a good couple inches off of the tip so that when you pipe it, it actually fills your donut pan. And I had some extra, so I got 4 more little mini bump pan things that kind of resembled the donut, and I filled those up as well. And then I kind of just press it down with my fingers to make sure that they're all flat and will turn out pretty well. This is them going into the oven. These are going to bake at 350 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. And then I just inserted a toothpick to make sure it came out cleanly, and they were perfect. Now we're going to make our maple cinnamon glaze to go on top. It starts off with 1 cup of powdered sugar. Now I have 2 little sous chefs here helping me out. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of maple syrup. Then we need a little bit of milk to help thin this out and turn it into a glaze. So I add a tablespoon of safe milk. Here, once again, I'm using coconut milk. Now we're going to add that little bit of spice to it. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of cinnamon, I wind up finishing up this bottle and then needing a little bit more. I'm going to use my whisk attachment for my stand mixer and let that whisk up. This is to help make sure all of the clumps and things are out. If you want to ensure that your glaze is completely smooth, you can sift your powdered sugar, but using the whisk attachment like this, mine turned out just fine. You know we had to do a little taste test of this glaze, and oh my goodness, this is so good. Here they are coming out of the oven. They looked and smelled so yummy.
Oh, it does look good.
We'll definitely be making this recipe again. Now I'm just gonna dip my donuts. I did let them cool, and I let them cool completely. They cooled in the pan some, and then I took them out and let them cool the rest of the way on this little tray. I tried to dip them in my glaze, but my glaze had sat there for a few minutes waiting on the donuts to cool. So I ended up actually putting it back in the microwave or into the microwave for just a few seconds. And that made it the perfect consistency for it to actually be able to dip the donuts in it and drip off and make them really, really pretty. So you can see with this one, my glaze is not quite as thick and it drips off now. This helped make much cleaner looking donuts. I don't know about you, but it's oddly satisfying to me to watch the glaze drip down off of these donuts.
Thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen today. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give me a thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button so you're notified when I post more allergy-friendly content. I've really enjoyed making these videos for y'all, and I hope that you're getting inspiration out of them for you and your family. The recipe for this is linked in the description box below. If you do decide to recreate this recipe, remember to tag me on Instagram so I can see. I'll see you in the kitchen next time.